What's going on, everybody? Welcome back into the Hoop Culture Podcast. My name is Dakota Haynes. That's Jayden Simmons. Jayden, it's been a while since we talked.
Yes, sir.
How you doing, man?
Life is good, man. I'm on spring break. Got some opportunity to see some family. The sun's shining. It's almost March Madness time. Nothing to complain about. How about you, man?
Well, it's been hectic the last couple of weeks. Helping the girlfriend move. Um, got back in the gym finally, and my brother's been working me super hard, so my entire body is sore. So trying to eat as much protein and drink as much water as I can, so that way the soreness goes away. But even then, my body's just continuing to be sore. But other than that, I mean, life's good. I got some things, in the works that are going to turn my life around and for the better. So, yeah, it's been a hectic last couple of weeks for me with those couple of things. But speaking of hectic times, the Minnesota Timberwolves I feel for their fans, man.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking last year, they didn't really get a chance to see this group of Karl Anthony Towns, Rudy Gobert, and Anthony Edwards play together. This year they have. And, I mean, now Karl Anthony Towns is out indefinitely with a meniscus injury. There's 44 days until the playoffs start, which seems like a lot. But, I mean, it's going to be here before we know it. This is a team that is 43-19 right now, currently number one seed in the Western Conference. And we're also talking about a team that when both Karl Anthony Towns and Anthony Edwards are off the court, they have the worst offense in the NBA. So they pretty much need Karl Anthony Towns to be healthy in order for their offense to be relevant.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh yeah, it's really rough. The injury bug is just really striking at the worst possible time right now. With the Timberwolves, the Cavs just lost Garland and Mobley again. Mitchell's also still out for them. The Knicks are going through all their injuries right now. It's a lot of contenders just going through a lot of turmoil. And it's just, we have about 20 games left in the season and everything is so close. So it's anyone's ball game right now. And it's really going to be interesting to see how the end of the season shakes up. I did tune into the Timberwolves game tonight. Edwards went down in the first quarter, but he ended up coming back, thankfully, and had an insane game-winning block. But I'm worried about the Timberwolves offensively. Not really worried about them defensively. But I think that Ant Edwards will be able to do enough to keep them in at least the top three. Who knows what happens. I know Woj tweeted earlier tonight saying that the timeline for Karl Anthony Towns is to be back early on in the playoffs. I know that, meniscus tears are, especially partial ones, they're rough injuries to come back from, but it's definitely something that isn't going to keep you out for too long. So hopefully, they can tread water here and Cat can be back for at least the second round, if not the first round.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely think that, he'll probably be back for some sort of the playoffs. And I do think that Anthony Edwards can keep the T-Wolves, with a top 3 seed in the West. I mean, I definitely don't foresee them losing the next 20 games. And I think they're far enough ahead of the 4 seed. I don't even know who the 4 seed is at the moment.
I think it's the Clippers.
But yeah, you might be right. But they're far enough ahead of the Clippers that, they wouldn't fall that far down. But But I mean, the problem is if they don't have Cat for that first series
Mm-hmm.
against, say a number 6 through number 6 10 or number 10 team, there's going to be some problems in that first
Yeah.
round. I
Yeah,
mean,
especially if you're facing like a team like Sacramento, where like
mhm,
Sabonis is so vital to that offense, and like this is obviously a team that's way better than an 8 seed. So like you need
mhm.
every single player at your disposal to face a team like that.
Uh, yeah, a Domantas Sabonis who is 9-0 against Anthony Davis. I mean,
Yeah,
yeah, uh, put that in put that in reference. I mean, that's how good Domantas Sabonis is. He's 9-0 against Anthony Davis. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's going to be brutal, especially if they don't have Karl Anthony Towns for that first series. But I hopefully they will. Hopefully, we'll get to see the Timberwolves healthy
hmm
in the playoffs. I want to see what this group can do together. Not because I'm a Timberwolves fan, but I mean, I'm a Blazers fan. Everybody knows that. But I just love basketball. I want to see Anthony Edwards. I want to see Karl Anthony Towns, do something. And this group is just so fun to watch.
yeah, yeah, and like I'm especially interested to see Rudy Gobert kind of combat some of these narratives around his name as a guy who shrinks in the playoffs. I'm interested to see him in this new role of we don't have to rely on him offensively, so he can just be the defensive anchor. And you take away Karl Anthony Towns from that, you're expecting Gobert to play a bigger role, and I just don't think that they're going to be well suited. I mean, I'm not saying that Anthony Edwards is the same type of player as Donovan Mitchell, but if you're going into the playoffs without Karl Anthony Towns, you essentially have the same makeup of those old Jazz teams who consistently weren't mainstays in the playoffs beforehand. So hopefully they can get back and get the full core together, so we don't see a repeat there.
Hmm. Well, speaking of hectic times as well, the Boston Celtics have gone on a mini losing streak over the past couple of games.
Yeah.
Um, I want to take a look at it actually. They have lost to the Denver Nuggets. They just lost to the Nuggets tonight, 115 to
hmm
109. But before tonight, we're recording this podcast episode on March 7th, 2024. They've lost to the Cavaliers by 1 point. I actually watched the final ending of that game,
hmm
and I was actually surprised. It actually came down to a review, um, and the Cavs won the game. Um, they did beat the Golden State Warriors pretty handily before that,
hmm
140 to 18 or 140 to 88. Beat the Mavericks, by 28. Uh, beat the Celtics or beat the 76ers, excuse me. Beat the Knicks.
hmm
But the last two games, I mean, this team has really fallen off a little bit, and their schedule is only going to get harder over the next couple of games. And then they have a pretty light schedule up until April 3rd.
hmm
But I want, do you think that some of this, I mean, and I want to reference an article that was written back on February 26th on phantomsportsindustries.com. It was by Justin Fields, not the quarterback for the Chicago Bears, obviously, but uh, he had talked about Joe Mazzulla
hmm
and if he's out with this C squad. Let me just read the introductory for you. It says, let's not beat around the bush and not say that there hasn't been some talks throughout this season surrounding Celtics head coach Joe Mazzulla. It seems like the energy around Boston and its fans is championship or bust. Could the blame fall on Mazzulla's lap if that doesn't happen?
mm Yeah, I really do think that that would be the ideal blame guy or the fall guy there. As we know, the Celtics never wanted Mazzulla to be the guy for this team. They hired Ime
Hmm.
Udoka to play that role. And, of course, Mazzulla stepped up and has been a good coach or a productive coach for them for the past 2 seasons. But, it's I'm saying that the Celtics shouldn't be in panic mode because, of course, we just see them beat the Warriors by 50 points, and everyone's talking about how unstoppable the unit is. And
Hmm.
then, the following game, they blow a 20-point lead to a Mitchell-less, Garland-less, Mobley-less Cavs. It's just I think these past 2 games, especially, have just been a reminder that the Celtics are human. And I mean,
Hmm.
I think that this will definitely put to rest some of the people that think that the Celtics are just this unbeatable organization. Now, that's not to say that the Celtics aren't still the favorites to come out of the East and go to the finals. I honestly think that the Celtics still might be the favorite to win the finals, but the game tonight especially really put those seeds of doubt because we see like Jaylen Brown had more than 40 points. I don't know how much he ended up with, but Tatum, on the other hand, like he was pretty much nowhere to be found, and like it's
Yeah.
just showing that once the going gets tough in the playoffs, teams are going to be able to game plan for them, and you're not necessarily going to be able to stop them, but if you're able to contain either Brown or Tatum, you're going to be able to take some games off of the Celtics. And if the Celtics are to run into a team like the defending champion Nuggets in the finals, I'm really leaning towards the team with the championship pedigree.
Yeah, you mentioned it best. I mean, Jaylen Brown, against the Nuggets had 41 points. Jason Tatum only had 15. So, yeah, like you said, I mean, once these teams start to figure out, a game plan for both of them, I mean, we've already seen, Jaylen Brown struggle in the playoffs before.
Mm-hmm.
If teams can figure out a way to stop both of them, the Celtics are going to fall. I mean, you can't sugarcoat that, right? Um, but I don't think that that's going to happen realistically. I mean, I do think that the Celtics will probably, make it at least to the Eastern Conference Championship. Uh, but I mean, yeah, like you said, once teams realize that they are human and they can defend their players well, it's going to be a lot tougher for the Celtics.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about the MVP race. It's been quite a season. I mean,
Yeah.
I can't believe that we're only 44 games away from the playoffs.
Yeah,
That
it's flown by really.
it has, and I mean, there's a lot of players who are playing at the top of their game. Um, so yeah, let's take a look here. Uh, didn't pull this up before, but let's see. So obviously, there's Nikola Jokic, who is in the race. Luka Doncic is in the race, and I know you. When we attempted to record the last podcast episode, I know you said you were going with Luka as the MVP winner. I hope that that's still on, because I'm actually going to say Luka should be the MVP as well. I mean, what was it? I saw something tonight saying that he became like the first player to ever have like 5 consecutive 30-point triple doubles or something like that.
Wow.
Yeah, first player. Let me see. Pulling up the stat right now. The only players in. Let's see. Yeah, only players in NBA history to record 5 straight 30-point triple doubles. Luka Doncic and Russell Westbrook.
Wow. Yeah, that's some elite company. That's some elite company.
And
Luka, what? Go ahead.
I think that same season, Russell Westbrook. I don't. might have won the MVP, but I don't know if Russell Westbrook ever won the MVP. Did he?
Yeah, 2017.
Okay, yeah, and that was the season that he had 5 straight. So
Yeah. You know, what Luka's been doing this season has been absolutely incredible. I think that he's at the top of his game. I think that he's the best that we've ever seen him up to this point. And yes, the last time we tried to record, I did pitch a Luka Doncic for MVP campaign. However, the past 2 weeks, I have changed my tune just a little
mm,
bit, and that's just because I always viewed the MVP as, if you're truly that valuable to your team, then you're going to get the most important thing towards the campaign, which is wins. And
mhm.
what Luka's doing is incredible. His numbers are spectacular every single night, but it's getting tiring seeing every single Mavericks game and seeing the caption of Luka with this incredible stat line, and then it just says despite the loss. And
Mm.
it's not Luka's fault that they're losing games. You can only ask for so much from your star. He's getting the ball almost 50% of the time. He has a really high usage rate. He's putting the ball in the basket. He's getting double digit assists. He's involving his team. But Luka is just such a negative on the defensive side of the ball that it's just so hard for them to win games and string along games. And of course, it's not just Luka. Kyrie's a slouch on defense as well. It's really, really difficult for me to say that Luka can actually be the MVP when they're just losing so many games. I know they're I believe they're the 6th seed now, maybe 7. And if you're in the play-in tournament, I definitely can't give you the MVP. Which, no disrespect to Luka, doesn't take away from what he's been doing. I definitely think that he's a shoo-in for All NBA first team. It shouldn't even be a conversation. But I've switched my MVP choice personally to Shea Gilgeous-Alexander in Oklahoma City.
Yeah, I mean the Mavericks are 8th in the Western
Oh
Conference
man,
as of right now, so they've definitely fallen off. I mean, you're talking the Kings are above them, the Suns are above them now, the Pelicans are the number 5 seed, and then the Clippers obviously the 4. Um, but yeah, you're talking there. The Mavericks are only a game and a half behind or ahead of, I should say, the Golden State Warriors and the
yeah,
Los Angeles Lakers.
wow, yeah,
So
no,
yeah, love Luca, love what he's doing, but um, yeah, I honestly after you said that, I mean I could honestly say the same. I mean I don't see a way just because of what the MVP award should be
hmm
that Luca should win. Um, I do like Shea. I do like his odds. Um, yeah, I mean probably would have to go Shea Gilgis Alexander as well. I mean, but we all know. I mean, I don't. I. It's probably just because of the name and the hype around the name. It's probably going to be Luka Doncic or Nikola Jokic.
hmm yeah, and the reason I advocate for Shea mainly this
Mm,
year is not only is he putting up insane numbers, he's averaging 31, 7, and 6 on shooting
mm,
55% from the field as a guard, which is insane. He has the same true shooting percentage as Giannis, so like he's extremely efficient, and it's like for a guy that's taking the amount of shots he's taking, it's incredible that like he's making a lot more of them than you would expect. But he's also playing that leadership role, and he's doing it
mm.
at a very young age. Um, he's the guy and the vet for a very, very, very young OKC team. And it's the OKC team that didn't even make the playoffs last year. He was an All NBA first teamer from his own performance, but this was a team that didn't make the playoffs. They didn't make any major roster additions in the offseason except for getting, a healthy Chet Holmgren. And the
Mm.
only move they made this year were shipping away failed projects in Trey Mann and Alexis Pokushevsky and Vasilij Micic, and bringing in a veteran in Gordon Hayward. And like we see that this is now a team that went from not making the playoffs at all to being tied for the first seed with 22 games left to play. It's like you the switch has been flipped. They've already won more games this year than they have last year, and the one constant here is Shea. He's putting up basically the same numbers as he did last year, but he's doing it on way higher efficiency. He stepped up. They're winning games against teams that realistically, when you look at the roster construction, they should have no business being in, let alone winning. I know that, like, there's concerns about whether Shea is a winning caliber player come playoff time, which in my opinion, we haven't been able to see from him yet because OKC hasn't been in that position other than when they had Chris Paul. And so, like, I really think that Shea is playing his heart out, and considering where people thought the Thunder would be and where they actually are now, and his level of play, I think he is the best case. And I give all props to Jokic. I give all props to Luka. If Jokic wins it, it will be good for the game as well because he got robbed of the MVP last year. But I think Shea is the guy this year.
Well, not to mention, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander is playing better defense this year than he did last year.
Absolutely.
And he leads the NBA in points this year. So, and steals for that matter. So, yeah. And I guess going down the list, leads the league in free throws made, leads the league in 2-pointers attempted. So not really, that much of a 3-point shooter like a lot of guards in the NBA are.
Mm-hmm.
Leads the league in steals per game. So yeah, I mean, I see the point. I could definitely agree. With the Shea Gilgeous-Alexander pick. And I'd love for, SGA to be the MVP this year. I mean, it would be hype. Like I've liked Shea Gilgeous-Alexander's game since he came into the NBA.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not a Thunder fan, but I mean, I'm a Portland fan. Gotta say, I like the fact that the Thunder took basketball away from Seattle. Gotta be a rebel. But no, yeah. I like that. SGA being the MVP, that would be great for the game as well. But I'm going to let you take the reins on this next topic, the Most Improved Award.
Yeah.
So, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I saw a tweet. I believe it was from Brett Usher, who's a columnist. He said that the Most Improved Player award has lost its. I don't think he used the word aura, but he said it's lost its significance, something along the sort. And just did a side by side comparison of like Most Improved Player winners in like the 90s and early 2000s compared to like the most recent Most Improved Players since like 2015. And, you're seeing names like, well, you're seeing all-stars, essentially. You're seeing Paul George. You're seeing Victor Oladipo. You're seeing Pascal Siakam, Brandon Ingram, Julius Randle, John Morant, Lauri Markkanen. And, it stirred conversations of whether the Most Improved Player has just become a kind of like a young stars award. And, of course, like this year, Tyrese Maxey has been getting a lot of praise and seems like he's the front runner for the award. And, I think it's kind of like a double-edged sword. You have like tremendous young talents that, are making big jumps. But I do think that I kind of do agree to some extent of that. I feel like we're basically awarding young guys for making the jump from good starter to all-star more than we're rewarding guys from jumping from like role player to good star or good starter. And I specifically, took issue with John Morant winning the Most Improved Player in 2022, considering that he was the second overall pick in 2019. And like, it really wasn't a surprise that he was going to ascend to all-star status very shortly.
Yeah, man, that one should have been Anthony Simons, my boy, in Portland.
Yeah.
He was just a stud that season. And
Hmm.
nobody really expected him to be that great coming out of high school.
Right, right, and really, that's like what my second point of this is. I think that we do need to get back to the mold of, looking at those guys that make insane jumps in their game and in their production, like on a year to year basis. So, like me, I believe that this year the most improved player award should go to Kobe White.
Mm.
This is a guy who, yes, he was a lottery pick in 2019, but this is a guy who, they brought in Lonzo Ball to start at point guard because they didn't trust him firmly, after his rookie season. Is a guy who, not only did they bring in Lonzo Ball, they traded for Alex Caruso. They drafted Ayo Dosunmu just 2 years later. So he's had so many hurdles in his way and so many competitors, pushing him at his position. And, this year he's just stepped up his game. He's been putting up tremendous numbers, looked very consistent, very efficient, and been a bright spot in a pretty, mediocre Chicago season. So I think that, we do need to start looking out for more guys like Kobe White or more guys like Jalen Johnson, more guys like Duncan Robinson, rather than just awarding it to whatever young player makes an all-star appearance that year.
Hmm. Right. And to add to your point, I mean, the front runner for most improved right now is Tyrese Maxey.
Hmm.
And he's not doing anything that, we wouldn't have expected him to do without James Harden there. He's
Right.
averaging 26 points, which is only about 6 points more than he averaged last season.
Hmm.
He's averaging 6.3 assists, which is at only like 3 assists more than he averaged last season. He's only averaging zero point 0.6 more rebounds than he did last year. Only zero point 0.2 more steals. So like, yeah, I mean, what has he done to really deserve this award? I mean, he already had a huge surrounding on his name, huge following on his name. Um, heading into the season as the
Hmm.
guy to take over at point guard for the 76ers. Um, so, yeah, I mean, I'm adding to that. I agree. I mean, I think it should be, somebody like Alperen Sengun or Scotty Barnes or Kobe White or I mean, I'd even go as far as saying, I mean, Anthony Simons this year. I mean, he hasn't done much for like the Blazers haven't done much this season, but Anthony Simons has been a star out on the court. I might be a little biased, but I mean, his stats were definitely good enough to be uh, an all star in a normal world. I mean, um, outside of like Steph Curry and all of the stars in the NBA today. I do think that Simons will get there at one point, but
Hmm.
unfortunately, he's not going to hit the 75 game threshold. Or what is it? What is
65.
it? 65. Yeah, he's not going to
Hmm.
hit that this season due to a couple of injuries. So can't go with him. But I mean, I would love to see his name back up in that race. Again, I mean, he is uh, at 1,400 odds at the moment. But yeah, I mean, I agree. Kobe White, Scotty Barnes, Alperen Sengun, one of those guys should get this award. And yeah, I mean, it's just like a lot of the awards have kind of become a joke at some point. Um, I don't know when that happened, but
Hmm.
even in other sports, like it's just become like more of a popularity contest than it has awarding the player that deserves it the most.
Hmm.
Um, and we need to get back to what is the true meaning of that award and
Right.
giving that award out based on that true meaning rather than just a popularity of um, who the best player is. Like, okay, the MVP is the most valuable player. Like, take a look at who the most valuable player is to their team. Like we said,
Right.
Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. Without him, the Thunder would pretty much be nothing.
Hmm.
But yeah, on that note, um, somebody who has been an MVP before, LeBron James, eclipsed 40,000 points. I know you were going to do an article on the 40,000 the other day, but let's talk about that. And I'll let you take the lead here. And I've actually got something to finish with. But yeah, go
Yeah.
ahead.
Uh, yeah. That article still is coming, still crunching some numbers, taking some a longer time than expected. But
Hmm.
40,000 points is a insane number to reach. It's an
Hmm.
insane mark. It's like once this article is out, and hopefully it's out by the time this is published, you guys will really see the breakdown of how improbable it is for anybody to score 40,000 points in this league. So the fact that LeBron James was able to do it alone is ridiculous. And LeBron is one of the most polarizing figures in sports, not even just basketball. You have people that absolutely adore LeBron James and prop him up anytime they get an opportunity, mention him at any opportunity. But then you have the entire other perspective of those people that do nothing but try to tear down LeBron and his legacy and his accomplishments. I've seen people go as far as to say he's not top 15 of all time, which is insane to me. But, you take away every single accomplishment that LeBron's ever done in his career. Take away his MVPs, take away his championships, take away his scoring titles, all defensive appearances. Take all that away, and you still have a guy who has scored 40,000 points in just 21 years. And that's absolutely incredible. And it's something that we probably will not ever see again in the history of this game.
Hmm.
And I know that you got a source that dives deeper to this, but I really think that, especially in the twilight of LeBron's career, it's a shame that people just aren't appreciating the greatness that we're actually seeing.
Yeah, you mentioned the source that I have, and I actually wrote an article back on March 3rd on phantomsportsindustries.com talking about, you know, LeBron reaching that 40,000 points threshold. Um, but a few days before he did that, Barstool's Marty Mush stated that people take LeBron for granted. He said, I think people do take him for granted for how great he's actually been for this long. And the initial post said, will the haters ever come around on LeBron? Unfortunately, I don't think that they will. There's just some haters out there that just continue to hate for no
Hmm.
apparent reason. I mean, I have come around to it. I used to be a LeBron hater. I've started to come around to it. Once he passed Kareem Abdul-Jabbar last season, and then now obviously with him reaching 40,000, I'm like, okay, yeah, he's one of the best players in all time, arguably probably the best player. We're not going to get into the whole GOAT debate, right now, but he's definitely up there with Michael Jordan.
Hmm.
Um, and in many ways, I think that Marty Mush has a point.
Hmm.
Sure, he's not officially 40 years old yet, but what other player has been this good for this long? That's a rhetorical question, by the way. Nobody
Hmm.
has. It's time for everybody to respect LeBron for the greatness that he has given for 20 plus years, because that number is probably going to continue to grow as well. I mean,
Hmm.
we've all talked about LeBron teaming up with Bronny James, but we also have to consider that Bryce isn't too far behind.
Right.
So, at some point, we could get LeBron, Bronny, and Bryce potentially on the same team.
Hmm. And like my thing with LeBron, and I agree with Marty Bush's take that people are taking LeBron for granted. And the reason I say that is because when I look at, the way that people in circles talk about Tom Brady
Mhm.
and his legacy to the NFL, it's pretty much undisputed that Tom Brady's the greatest of all time. And of
Mhm.
course, Brady has the most championships of any player. So it's an easier case to make with him because it's not only just the counting stats, but it's the fact that he wins. But like me as a New York Giants fan, I've always hated Tom Brady, and you know me hating Brady as a player never once took away from the respect that I have for him and the greatness that he provided to the game for, again, 20 years. Um, and I just feel like LeBron doesn't get that same grace from people that hate him. Like people that despise LeBron James will do anything in their power to try to tear down his legacy. Whether it's saying that the 2020 championship in the bubble was a fluke, or people saying that he's been a stat patter, or people saying he builds his own teams, he trades players away. Like people will go to insane lengths
Mhm.
to try to discredit LeBron, and it's something that we haven't seen in other sports. And like you said, I honestly don't think that it's going away even after he retires, just because of the social media era. Um, people are going to always air their grievances with any player that they dislike. But I hope that by the time LeBron is reaching his 50s and 60s, that we can come to a consensus to just talk about how iconic of a player he was.
Yeah. I mean, he's creating a legacy that nobody is going to touch.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're talking, you know, he reached 40,000 points, which no other active player in the NBA right now is remotely close. Kevin Durant would be the closest, but he's 12,000 points away.
Which
And
is
he's
crazy.
he's already in his 30s as well. So, yeah, you said it. That's just crazy. Like LeBron has definitely been an iconic player. He's been a generational talent, arguably the best talent that we've ever seen in the NBA. It's time for people to give him the flowers that he deserves,
Mm-hmm.
which unfortunately we probably won't see. But any other comments from you, Jayden?
I just want to reiterate, like Kevin Durant is eighth all time in scoring.
Mm-hmm.
There are only 7 names in between LeBron James and Kevin Durant, but there are 12,000 points in between LeBron James and Kevin Durant.
Mm-hmm.
Insane. It's insane.
Yeah, it's insane. That's for sure. But all right, well, that's going to do it for us here on the Hoop Culture Podcast. My name is Dakota Haynes. That's Jayden Simmons. We'll see you next week right here on Phantom Sports YouTube account.